Hi, everyone. Welcome to Software Success. I'm Ashley Jones, and I'm going to be here with you today sharing all about the Amélie Scott plugin for our My Quilt Planner software. So, as always, I'm excited to be here with you guys today. You guys know I love my embroidery software, all of it. And so I love sharing that love with all of you and helping you learn and get the most out of your embroidery software. So make sure you ask questions. If you're here live, that's the beauty of being here during the live time, is you can get answers to your questions. And while we're waiting for everybody to join, just tell us hi, say where you're watching from, and we'll just say hello to everyone before we get started. So I already see some familiar names and some that I don't necessarily recognize, but hello to everyone. Elaine Kelly from Conroe, Texas, outside of Houston, Texas there. And we've got Grand Junction, Colorado, DD Use 51 looks like. So Carolyn McPherson, welcome. Glad to have you here. Rosalind Bush, nice to see you here. And Pauline, good to see you from British Columbia, Canada. So good to see you. And we've got Kirsten Engelmark. Kirsten says she's hello from Sweden. First time live. Welcome, Kirsten. Thank you so much for being here. So she has My Quilt Planner and the plugin. She got a few days ago and she loves it. That's so exciting. Thank you for sharing, Kirsten. I always love to hear that. Jennifer Alexander, a super knowledgeable user of all of our Dime software. Thank you for being here. My friend Eileen from Maryland. Thanks for being here, Eileen. So lots of information on all of our software. If you are new to Software Success, so hey, Marianne, glad to see you too. If you are new to our Software Success, we talk all Dime software, but just each time we're here, it'll be a different one. But you always can learn regardless of which software piece I'm using, because there's lots of overlap. So hey, Dawn, good to have you here. Dawn and I will also be together this week on Between Friends. So that's Thursday. So I'm excited to be here again on Thursday. Cindy, thank you for joining, Cindy. Glad to have you here as well. My friend Bet from Arizona. Thanks for being here, Bet. And we've got Tammy Madden. We go as part of our education team. So Tammy, thanks for joining us on your break. I know you're on your break between events. So my friend Stephanie, thanks for being here. Joanne Banco. Hey, Joanne, thanks for being with me too. So you guys know Joanne from Let's Go Sew. So good to have everybody here, and I'm excited to share more with you on this topic of the Amélie Scott Edge to Edge plugin for My Quilt Planner. So today I'm going to talk about how you can import an image of your quilt and design right on top of that image. So sometimes it's nice to see your layout on your actual quilt before you make those final decisions or changes. So we're going to see that. And also I'm going to show you a small project. Most often when we show this particular program, we show big quilts because that's where it's most impressive, is that it can help you determine all of those hoopings needed and getting your placement and everything for large quilts. But it's also great for small items too, especially like table runners, which I do a lot of, because since we do a lot of camera work, they're smaller table runners, table toppers, easier to show under the camera. Plus, I just love doing them because they stitch quickly. And then also we get this question a ton, and that's, can I import my own designs or designs that are not native to the software? And the answer is yes. And so I'll show you guys all of that throughout the presentation. So now, if you have never seen the Edge to Edge plugin by Amélie Scott Designs for our My Quilt Planner software, that's the program that I'm using today. But it doesn't mean that if you don't own this program, you probably will still learn some stuff, because I always show things that work in other software as well. But if you are new to what this plugin is, it is currently the only software that we have here at Dime that requires you to own another program. So the Amélie Scott Edge to Edge plugin requires that you own My Quilt Planner for it to work. All of other Dime software runs independently, because this is a plug-in, you do have to own My Quilt Planner. And the concept is the same as what My Quilt Planner does, only this is specific to Amélie Scott designs. Doesn't mean you only have to use Amélie Scott designs, but the math and the way that she calculates and does her designing is specific in this plugin. So that's what we're talking about today. Now, the Edge to Edge plugin, again, it looks the same as Planner, but it is a separate purchase, and it is required that you own My Quilt Planner. So My Quilt Planner is a program that Dime created years ago for planning your quilting layout if you wanted to quilt your quilt with your embroidery machine. So it takes the math out of the process, and it resizes the designs perfectly to fit your quilt. And so this function is perfect for doing all of your edge to edge designing. Well, Amélie Scott Designs, who is Christine Connor, the owner and creator of the Amélie Scott Designs, she is the queen of edge to edge, but she has a bit different way of determining the design size and the quilt layout than we do in our My Quilt Planner. So she wanted to incorporate that. And so she worked with Dime to create this Edge to Edge plugin. Now, if you own the Edge to Edge plugin or you plan to purchase it, it does come with an ebook called Perfect Pairings. These are quilt plans or layouts that she has provided for you that match the built-in designs. It has 6 expansion packs built in, new expansion pack built in, and 6 design sets, which give you a border and a corner. So let's head over and get started with what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to head over to the software, and I'm going to start small because I really love using this even for our small projects. So inside of My Quilt Planner, if you own the plugin, you'll have this. Well, actually, everybody has this icon, but if you own the plugin, whenever you click it, it will open up this window. If you don't own it, when you click that icon, it'll say that you can go and purchase the plugin if you're interested in it. But you can use this with Amélie Scott Designs and even designs that are not Amélie Scott, but it uses her planning method. And when I say her, I'm referring to Christine Connor of Amélie Scott Designs. So now let's start table runner. So I have a table runner that I created using this program, and it was 40 inches wide, and the interior of my table runner was 10 inches. Notice that when you're entering your measurements, it says that these are your quilt dimensions here in this top area. The quilt body is what you're going to enter for the width and the height. So that means not to put or include your border. Your border will be entered separately here. So I entered the width of my interior, and I enter the height of my interior. And then if I do have a border, I can click width and I can enter that measurement. So my border was a 3-inch border. And now the center area here, this is where you will add your design. So when you click on the A, it'll ask you to locate the A design that you want to use. So I can choose from any of these designs that are built in, and I've even added one here. This Valor pack is actually a free one from Amélie Scott Designs that I installed in here to be able to use that one too. But I'm going to use the Sherbert design here. So select the A design and click OK, because I clicked on A, and then I'm going to click the B design. Now, the reason it lets you choose again is because you could have mix and match designs. And so it gives you a message saying that it's not the same one, and so that they don't recommend it if they don't match, because the designs are different size. But even though they don't recommend, you certainly can still do this if you are wanting to mix and match your designs. Now, I want my designs to match, so I'm going to go back and choose the B design. And then for the border option, I'll choose the matching border design and then the cornerstone matching design as well. And you can see as I input those designs, it actually created the quilt layout for me, recommended based on the sizes of these designs and my quilt measurements that I entered. Okay, so with this layout here, I'm going to say okay, and we can see that being add to our workspace here. So we'll give that just a second to do some thinking. And then now on our workspace, we've got the ability to see how many hoopings it's going to take to get the interior of our quilt done. Now, this is the way that I quilted my quilt because I do have a large hoop. This is this area here. Remember, my center measurement was 10 inches, and this design is a 5.71 by 9. Now, I have a hoop that's large enough to be able to use the design in this manner, and I liked just having the one design across the table runner. You can see also that I have all of the designs that I need for each of the borders, and you can see how they're automatically rotated, and the cornerstones as well. So to get this quilted, Christine Connor recommends just quilting in columns. So you could start here at A1 and continue and quilt this entire table runner. I did start in the center of mine, and then I quilted this half, and then I flipped it around and quilted the other half here. But it just, this is a small project, so you have a little more leeway. When I click on any of the designs, I can see over here in my properties the exact measurement of that design, so I know exactly what hoop I'm going to need to use to get that quilted. Okay, so now let's go back into our settings and see a little bit different options here. Now that I've clicked to go back into my settings, I have another option that I did not have before, which is columns and rows. So here, if I wanted to use a smaller hoop, I could certainly change the number of columns and rows. So if I leave the columns as 7, but the rows as 2, you can see that now I'm going to have a much smaller design. So if I click OK and wait for it to update there on my screen, you can see that it has resized my design. It's not quite as attractive, but it certainly gives me a smaller hoop. This is actually a 5.71 by 4.25. Now, with these smaller projects, what you might want to do in order to prevent your design from being kind of smushed in this manner, so let's go back in one more time. And now instead of the 40 width and the 10 height, I'm actually going to reverse the two. So I'm going to do 40 by or 10 by 40, which was my interior. And notice here that it automatically adjusted that in this orientation for me. Now I'm going to have 2 hoopings and 2 columns. So it automatically did that when I changed those settings. I'm going to leave my design the same and click OK so that we can watch what happens on the screen here. So, and this is just a different way of manipulating your placement and your design size based on these smaller projects. So here, if I click on this design and I head over here, this design is 5 inches wide by 9.38. Okay, so if I go back into my settings one more time, and maybe for the rows, instead of 4, I'll just increase it by 5, click OK. And I still think that this is going to look good on the design. You can see that it still looks great. It's not distorted with this particular layout. But when I click this design and check my size here, now I'm 5 by 7.39. So this would now fit in a 6 by 10 hoop, which is a very common size, much more so than the really large hoop sizes that we have. So small projects like table runners, table squares, bed runners, this would work good for, even placemats. So placemats usually are only a few hoopings, but you can do them with smaller hoops and make more hooping. So you can certainly make those changes as well. So really easy, but this is a really great way to manipulate the design and the layout just by, with these smaller projects, changing the orientation by reversing your width and your height. You're still getting the same end result, but it's gives you, end result as in you're going to get it all quilted, but certainly it's working with that design size. Now when you choose a design, these measurements are created based on the design size. So if I change this design, I think we talked about this last time, this time I'm going to use this windmill and click OK. And the windmill design is a little wider. And so you can see that it's automatically already adjusted that as one large block in the center. So the placement and the number of hoopings, that's all determined based on the design size so that it does not distort the design too much. It kind of creates and keeps with that shape. So your design does make a difference. So if you just change the design and you notice your layout changed, then that would be why. Now this one, if we go the opposite direction, the 40, 10, you can see that it's changed that a little bit. It's a little less square. So sometimes reversing these numbers on your smaller projects may be really helpful. I don't notice this as much with your larger projects, but certainly you could flip that around as well. But to me, it's more obvious on these rectangular ones. So that's an easy way to make adjustments. So it is customizable, but it's all starts out based on her measurements, Christine Connor of Amélie Scott Designs. So let's see if we've got any questions before we go on to the next thing. So Linda Johnson says, please tell us how to import the other Amélie Scott Designs I have purchased into the Dime plugin. So Linda, you would want to reach out to Amélie Scott Designs. If you go and log into your account that you've purchased those designs, and if you've purchased them directly from Amélie Scott Designs and you re-download, then Mark, who is Christine's husband, he is creating an installer file for all of those files so that you can install your other or past purchases. If it's something that you have not purchased through their site and maybe from your local dealer or a trade show, something like that, then reach out to them, email their customer service, and Mark will respond and he'll set you up with the installer file for what you need to get those installed. But this is a program that was created by them. We just worked with them and created the software, but it was their idea, their design. But all of their designs, they work on getting them installed in there. So definitely reach out to them. Mark and Christine both are really lovely, and I know they'd be happy to help get those installed for you. But if you do have access to your account on Amélie Scott Designs, it may be just as simple as downloading updated files and it has that installer in there. So check that out as well. So, and then Kara Dorn says, does this package come with directions? Yes, we have a user manual that is for all Dime software. And the user manual for this Amélie Scott plugin was written specifically by Mark and Christine to give you the instructions for using this. What I'm showing you, the specifics may not be exactly in there, but as you start working with different quilt measurements, then you'll kind of get an understanding of the process and the planning. But really, if you start basic, Kara, and just enter your quilt dimensions and then choose your design, that is enough to know how to get started. If you watched 2 weeks ago, I did this plugin part 1, the getting started. Go back and rewatch that if you haven't seen it already. It's on our YouTube channel, so you can rewatch it, and that'll kind of give you a basis of what to do to kind of get started. But it's really simple. If you just started with your quilt measurements and choosing your design, it's really really that simple. So, and then Carolyn McPherson says, why is there a space between each hooping? Does it expect sashing? No. With the Amélie Scott plugin, Christine Connor's method, she leaves a 1/2 inch space between designs. So that's kind of her default. So she built that into the planning process. Now, in our regular quilt planner, we do not leave the space between our designs. And it's just a different method of doing it. But her designs, her method in her plugin, she leaves that space. And I can honestly say that I've been using her plugin and that space, and it really gives you kind of a fail safe. It's super forgiving when you've got that little bit of extra space. So when you get to your next column, if you were off a little bit, you have that wiggle room to kind of adjust. And honestly, you will never even know. So I'm kind of really liking that that extra wiggle room that she gives you in there. But it's not specific to sashing. It's just her recommended spacing. And when we go back over there, I'll show you, you can reduce that or adjust it as well. So, and then Linda says, review how to export the stitch file. Will do, Linda. Good question. So, because it is a little bit different there. And then Marianne says, great information for smaller projects. I wouldn't have thought of just changing the size on my own. So yes, so I'm glad I could help you. So that's what this is all about. I learned from all of you guys and all of your questions just as much as you guys learn from what we do here at Dime. So, okay, so let's head back over. We'll answer the question about the stitch file and the spacing over here. So if I go in, I'm going to use a larger example for this on the space because I'm also going to import the picture on this. So let's go back in to a new quilt project and set our quilt width and height. So I'm going to set my height for this particular project. And for this one, I'm going to say no border. You do not have to have a border design. Or if you do have a border, but you don't want to quilt it separately, you just want to go edge to edge, you can ignore your border, even if you have one on there, just by leaving none. And then I'm going to go in for this one. I'm going to choose the windmills first, and then I'm going to show you how to bring in your own designs as well. Coming up. Now down here below, you can see that it has this spacing automatically between the rows of stitching, but the columns touch because the two designs link up, and I'll zoom into that. So these numbers down here, these are Christine's recommended settings, but you certainly can change those settings as well. So if I put that I want a 1/4 inch here, I can do that, and it will put a little bit less space there. And it does accommodate and adjust the design whenever you're adjusting these settings. And you can change this. These settings here are specific to the border designs. And right now we don't have a border. We just have the body design. Now, this will not let you go to 0 as a fail safe. If you want 0 spacing, I would say just to use your regular quilt planner settings, and all of you have these because you have to own Quilt Planner to have the Amélie Scott plugin. Okay, so when I say okay, you can see that it populates everything, and I've got a little bit less space in between. But now the space between the designs themselves, you can see there's none because they link up, because that's the whole premise of your edge-to-edge quilting. Okay, now to export the designs, let me go back over here to my table runner for this one, because this has more designs, and so you'll see more of it. So like Linda says, if you'll review how to export the stitch files. Now, if we were to save this quilt, so let's save both of these, and actually I'm going to go back in here and make one change. I'm going to use my the sherbet here, because then this actually gives me the opportunity to tell you about adjusting the border, those settings. So let's do that, and then click OK, and it'll generate this example for me. And then I'm going to zoom in, and then we'll go back and show the settings. Now, talking about the designs connecting. So another thing that is default is that Christine also leaves the spacing between border designs, because not all of her border designs connect. So if I go back in, and these border designs here, if I go over to the tulips, you could see this little Dutch wooden shoe here, it does not connect. It's just an individual design. So she gives you the option to change that. So in the border designs settings, so the space between the border designs, you can go to 0 here. Click OK, and then I'll just let it generate here. It just takes a minute for it to figure it out. And now when I zoom in, you can see that there's no space and we'll connect those edge to edge. So just wanted to point that out there. And I'm going to now export the quilt. So we need each of these designs in order to get the entire thing quilted. So what I like to do is I like to save my file. So file, save as, and I leave this as a C2S file. And then I'm going to put this on my desktop just so I can easily get back to it here. And we're going to call this our runner. And I'm going to click save. Okay. So then the second thing that I want to do is export the quilt design. So when I click export quilt, what it's going to do is it's going to save those designs for me, all of those individually with one click. And on this, I'm going to choose my machine format because it's saving the files individually. So I need those to be in my format for my embroidery machine. And then I'm going to click save. And then it opens up the folder where it has saved those designs. And you can see that with that one click of the export option, it saved my interior files, my border files all rotated to go around my border, and my cornerstones all rotated to go around my corner. And it also gives you this PDF recommendation for where to start, which is here in the center, and then quilt that right-hand side. And then you're going to flip your quilt around to the unquilted side, and then you'll quilt that half there. Okay, so I'm going to close this out and close my fall folder. And that was this export quilt option here. When you export the quilt, it saves all of your designs into individual files in your format that you choose so that you don't have to click save. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4, 8, 9, 10 times. So I would have had to click save 10 times. So the export exports those files all in one click easily so that you can save your design in one click. But now the C2S file is also really important. So I'm going to close this C2S file, and then let's do file and open and go to my desktop, and I'm going to look for the C2S file that was called runner. Hopefully I saved that here somewhere. Where did it go? I thought it went on my desktop. Oh, I closed it out and it's not even here. Maybe it's in, no, not there either. Oh, I messed up. We'll do it on this next one. But the C2S file, when you save that C2S file, it actually saves the layout for you. And so, and I just double checking, I seriously don't save it. Don't see it. So maybe I didn't save it. So we'll do it on this when we get done designing here. So now on our full quilt, let's see how we can bring in an image, and then I'll save this one to our C2S. So I'm going to do file and load backdrop. If you want to design on a image of your quilt, you can choose load backdrop. Now I've got some images of my different quilts here. I can select that image and click open. And when it comes in, it's hard to see, but let me turn off my quilt here. You can see that little image in the background there. Okay, so I'm going to turn that back on, and we'll see here. If you click in the white space, then you'll see over here in your properties tab that you've got this icon that says backdrop. So now I can set the size of my backdrop, which is what my quilt is, and click apply. And now I've got an image of the quilt behind my design. Now over here in the bottom left, the toggle canvas, if you turn that off, it will remove all of the lines and those boxes. So you can just view it in this manner that you see here. So if I zoom in, you can see that we've got a preview of those designs. The reason they are not so dark is because they're not an actual stitch file. So if I zoom back out here, the only stitch files I have on the screen are these two. All of these are just repeats of the others. So by hiding this option here, it turns off that grid or that layout so you can see a little bit better your quilt background. Now, the one above it is to hide and to show your background image. Okay, so hide and show the background image there. And let's bring in another one. So that was a really flat image, but let me show, let me do a new page here. So I'm going to do File and Load Backdrop because I want to show you something a little bit different here. And this is an actual photograph of a quilt that I made. And notice I've got a little space around the edges here and it's not perfectly straight. Now, if you bring in an actual photograph that's not perfectly flat and you can't actually resize that based on the whole file, because you might have some blank space around it, then you want to use this define scale. So over here in your left-hand column, the define scale option is under the backdrop tool here. Okay, so if I click this arrow, a flyout menu comes out and I can choose define scale. That will let me define an area. So if I zoom in here, because these are jelly roll strips, so they're 2.5 inches. So with my 1/4 inch seam, I know what size they are. So if I click define scale, I click one point and I hold my mouse and I drag to the next point. And when I release, it says, what's that measurement? Well, that's, as long as I stitched correctly, that is a 2-inch area. And when I say okay, it actually adjusts the image based on that scale. So in that case, I don't have to redefine the entire size of my picture over here because sometimes we have space around our image. So we can't just say, make this entire image this big because it would also make that space larger as well. Now, this image is pretty straight, but another thing that you can do is define the horizon, which is over here in my left-hand toolbar. And under that flyout menu, if I say defined horizon, it will let me mark a line. Okay. And so this again is pretty straight here, but it might adjust a little bit. So I'm just dragging down one of those strips. And whenever I release, you can see that it just slightly adjusted that for me to make sure that my image is straight. So now whenever I enter my quilt information here, and I'm just going to do that 51 by 61 again. I don't remember if that's exactly what it was, but let's just do this quickly and choose a couple of designs here and then say, okay, it'll put that right on top of my image. So after you have done your design, let me zoom in here. After you have done your design, you can import the image or you can import your image first. To bring in an image, it is the load backdrop feature. So load backdrop is the settings for bringing in an image into any dime software. Okay, so just something to think about for loading that background image. Okay, now I don't see any questions popping up, so I must be covering everything 100%. So hopefully not missing anything. Oh, here's one. Here's Carolyn McPherson says, why is the, oh, we did that one already. Is it for to expect sashing? So we did do that already. So since you guys don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and now show how you can import your own quilting design. So you do not have to use the built-in designs into My Quilt Planner or the Amélie Scott designs. You can use your own design. So if I start a new workspace here and click my icon, this is always how we start our quilt. Enter your measurement. If you have a border, enter that. Now, instead of when I click the A, it opens up my catalog of my Amélie Scott designs. If you want to use a design that you already own, uncheck this option here where it says use Amélie Scott designs. Just remove that check mark. When you click on the A option, it opens up your File Explorer. And then you can locate on your computer the design that you want to use. Like this is a design that I own that is a VP3 file, and I click OK. Now this does not have a B version. So for the B, I'm just going to load the same one because they connect edge to edge. And when I click OK here, you can see that it even without the Amélie Scott design, it still created my quilt plan through the Edge to Edge plugin. Now, let me show you one other thing too. So these designs actually do connect edge to edge. Okay, so there's a point that connects right here. These connect at the bottom instead of in the middle like the Amélie Scott designs do. So you can see it's still connecting. But you can also use designs that don't even connect. So let me go back here and I'm going to click to choose my A design, and I'm going to go in, and this is a design that's little wells, and they're just a block. So like if you wanted to quilt a block, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the B design because I just want the same design to go everywhere, and click OK. And then zoom in here so we could see. Now, these designs do not connect. They are just a square design, but they look like they do because they are butted up one right next to the other. So this design does not even have those connecting points. And I was even able to bring that into the Amélie Scott Edge to Edge plugin. So really easy to do. And you can customize this for a variety of different projects. Again, small, large. I'm going to toggle this canvas one more time, and we can see that without a quilt behind it, I can actually see much better what that layout's going to look like. And even though that's wells, that actually makes a cute little pattern, doesn't it? So you can see that it's wells that are just rotated around in mirror image. So I kind of like that. So sometimes when we're just playing, we kind of discover some things. So, okay. So, that is all that I have. Let's see if there are any other questions here. So Liza Schwartz says, do you have a special software that you can use on your own, or you can use your own software? So do you have to have the special software? So for quilting with your embroidery machine, you actually don't have to have a special software. For years before we had these programs, we just started with one quilt design in the image, and we just worked our way out, each time realigning the design. What happens with this software is when you start incorporating multiple designs, or you're trying to get your design to fit within the interior and it doesn't stitch over the border, it prevents you from having to figure out all the math that's needed to be able to quilt your quilt with your embroidery machine. So if you've never quilted with your embroidery machine, all you need is a quilt sandwich, an embroidery machine, and a quilting file for your embroidery machine. And you can just start right in the center, and then you're going to rehoop to move to the next spot. And I actually think I have a little image here of how that works. So for the quilting, we'll see this on this slide. So if we can share that, perfect. So I started with my table runner. So this is a really good example if you've never done this. What I do with my quilt or my table runner or my table square is I marked the center and I put my very first design there. So you can print a template from the software, and that's going to help you get it lined up. I usually make sure that my needle is exact center, and you stitch that first design right there in the center of the quilt. Now, after that design stitches, then you're going to move your hoop over to this next design that's stitching now to stitch that area. Now, with this edge-to-edge method, we're actually connecting those two point to point to make this look like it's continuous line quilting. Now, the software will help you figure out the design size needed so that it ends before your border starts. As you can see in this image here, I could put a different design on my border, whereas the method that we did ages ago without software, we started in the center and we just quilted all the way to the edge. And we didn't do any math to figure out how to do a different border design. So that's what spawned the software to do all that quilt math for us. So, so if you've never done it, it's really easy and super simple. Just give it a try. Just start with, even if you don't have a quilt top, maybe just make a sandwich out of your fabric and get started that way. So, and then Valerie says the weightless quilter is very helpful for larger quilts. I totally agree, Valerie. The weightless quilter, if you guys don't know what that is, it's our quilt frame that is great for supporting the quilt while you're quilting on your embroidery machine. So it basically holds it up like you've got 4 friends standing on all the corners of your quilt, just holding it so your machine can move freely. So I definitely agree with you. It's such a huge help. For smaller projects, I'll use my weightless quilter tabletop. And if it's really small, like a placemat, then really nothing is needed. So just a reminder, the edge-to-edge plugin does require that you own, or either you have to purchase My Quilt Planner, but the edge-to-edge plugin does come with the Perfect Pairings ebook, which is quilt patterns and some appliques, and then you can quilt them with the built-in design. So you get 6 built-in design sets that give you matching designs and borders, and then you also get an exclusive expansion pack that's already in the software, and that's only available through the edge-to-edge plugin. So that's all included. The designs are already in there, and the Perfect Pairings is just a nice little bonus. So, and then I see a couple of other questions popping up before we go there. So what will my 4 friends do when they're unemployed after the weightless quilter? Linda, they will sit there and eat chocolate, sip wine, have a soda, and then they'll just chit chat and give you moral support. That's what they'll do after you, if you don't need them to support your quilt anymore. So how do you know where next design will stitch after center? The next design, Roxanne, will, when you move your hoop, you want the points to connect. So I usually print a template, and you can put the template down there, and that will tell you where to center your design. And then you can check to make sure those points connect. So a printed template, that's actual size, or if you don't have a printer, you can stitch your template. So if you're doing this without any software, stitch a template onto a stabilizer, and then you can use that to place down on your quilt after the first design to get it all lined up. So, so that is, I think, everyone's question. So I wanted to say thanks everyone for being here today. If you don't have the edge-to-edge plugin and you want it, check your local dealer. We do have it on our website as well, but I always like to support our local stores. So if you have a local dime dealer, check with them first. They may even be able to give you a better price than even you can get directly from us. So support your local shop. I can't say that enough if you do have one. And so in a couple of weeks, I will be back here on May the 21st. We will be talking about Embroidery Tool Shed Plus. This is a new program for us here at Dime that is really inexpensive. It's less than $150, and it has some massive embroidery editing capabilities, and it also has built-in fonts and monograms. So I'll show you all the things that it can do in 2 weeks. And don't forget, even if you don't have Embroidery Tool Shed Plus, but you have other Dime software, I promise you there are some things that you will learn even in that episode. So come see me on May the 21st. And until I see you then, you can also find me this week on Thursday on Between Friends. I also have a little software blurb this week, so join me there as well. We're going to be talking about a really cool technique of a reverse puff lettering. So make sure you join me, and Dawn from Creative Applique will be there as well. So that's Thursday, and on our same YouTube and Facebook channel, same time, 1 p.m. Central. So until I see you next time, I'll say bye for now, and thank you all for being here.